Hello, this is Max Break. I just want to talk about this accessing recent files. I did an initial one, and I'm just going to do a Control-Alt-A, and it's going to pop up with this. I'll scroll down. I'm going to find something like that. So I can find a file that I actually want to keep, and I'm going to just saying PDF of Sudoku or something. And go OK on that, and the project, I just put it down as a general project, and it's just written that file. Now what I can actually do is I can get, whoops, sorry, it's just that one and that one. Here's a hotkey. We can actually see, here's this one here. Now if I click on it on here, it will now go and open it up in Adobe. Now I could actually say open that up in Firefox, or open it up in a browser or something else, or Adobe Reader or something, and that's where it actually opens that file up. So straight away it's done something. Now my original one, I actually loaded the information, used auto hotkeys to actually create a file with all of the data inside it. I then had to use Excel to actually import that data, create a hyperlink that I could click on that would take me to a file. And I wasn't happy for that for two reasons. One, I was using two different programs, and I was coding some of it in auto hotkey and some of it in VBA inside Excel to do the macros inside there that would build the hyperlinks. And the other one was Excel, well, three reasons actually. The second one was Excel, you actually had to have the paid version so that you could use the macros. If you've got the free versions, you can't use the macros, which I was suddenly thinking, no, I wanted something that it could be shared around with anybody. And the third thing is Excel is slow to load up. So you'd actually have to have Excel plus that macro open all the time to be able to use it. And that wasn't what I wanted. So this is where I carried on. I suddenly thought, I've got the proof of concept is that I'd be working on a project, put it down a month ago. I'd have three different designs. I'd have noted the files with DES 1, DES 2, DES 3, but I couldn't remember which. So on my thing, I can actually write a description about them. This, the first design, did put a tree in the chimney pot. The second one put a tree through the left window, and the third one put the tree that went underground or something like that. So you could quickly see which was the version that you actually wanted to charge in and do. And that's just, I'm trying to make a tool that works for me rather than me work for a tool. I could end up putting another massive amount of information on the file name itself, or have some other method to do it. But I suddenly thought, no, this is the way I work. I do 2 or 3 different concepts in different files, and then let the client choose. And if they choose something else, then I can actually go through and adapt. But I was finding that I was searching a long time finding those things. So this was a way that I could put a bit of note, a bit of annotation next to what I wanted. So, and another thing that I actually found as well that was a bit of a naughty in the file, when I was actually trying to call my file path, what it was actually doing was it was corrupting. I've got some emojis. So if I just go and look in my Explorer, you'll see I've got some emojis on my things. Now what it does is that I actually found when I was saving it to a text file, I think I've got UTF-8 or whatever it is, it seemed to be coming through with question marks, so therefore it wouldn't go and find the file. Now there might have been a way around it. You save your files as a different sort of thing. Now it was mainly when I was doing a delete, and I'll talk about that later, but basically it corrupted that. So I've only done it in a couple of places, and I ended up concluding that the best way to do it was actually just to take those away. So I'm in the middle of taking those out of all of my folders. What I use instead is that there's a little one through here which says my folders. You can go, sorry, if I go onto there, and if I click on that, there's one here which actually says change folder icon color. So you can actually go and do that. So it's a free program. You can go and find that one, and it just paints your folder colors. And I find that very useful just as a visual. Being a designer, visuals are good. These ones were sort of good and they were fun to explore, but at the end of the day, if they're going to break my programs, it doesn't work for me. So I'll order those. So that's just something of a little bug that you come through. So the next one that I looked through was using QuickLinks by Jack Dunning, who actually has this program. I'll put a link through to here. This is the earlier version. He's got a later version now. You can actually click a button at the bottom here and it will open up a folder off, so that it opens up Explorer, so you can select a file and it will actually write a shortcut link. It creates a shortcut link to that particular file, and then it goes and puts it in a folder up on high up so that you can get it. But one of the things was the later version, this has actually got the folders and then you've got the links inside the folders, but I wanted to be able to do subfolders, but I couldn't get Jack Dunning's one working. But somebody else actually had one that did work. It allowed you to do a whole load of subfolders inside there, so you could actually have subfolders and some of the ones further down. I couldn't get that to work. Jack Dunning updated his one, but anyway, the issue that I actually had with that, and it's very similar to this one here, is an auto pop-up, and I can actually do directories and stuff inside here, is the fact that it gives you the file name, but it's not giving you the dot or the description that I actually wanted to add. And so I could have added that as a description and had the file name and then put a big description and added it on and done all of that. But I suddenly thought, no, it's not sortable or anything like that. It's really just a whole lot of ones stuffed in a certain area, and you've got to go hunting for where those are. So it didn't quite meet the needs of what my initial scheme was. So this is where this quick access, I came across this gentleman, Thought Asylum, who ended up with this one here, and it did exactly what I wanted to do. Well, it didn't do exactly, but it's got all the principles right, and it uses file list view. And so what you can actually do, you can add a whole lot of names with a bit of information into here, and he ended up with all of these, and then these are clickable. So when this comes up with this GUI through here, if you click on one of these, like this home folder, it opens up Explorer and then takes you to that home folder. If there's one which is a PDF, it will open up a PDF viewer. I think all he actually had was a text viewer and an auto hotkey viewer. With some of the scripts that he'd actually got. It actually had to be, if it's a file, then do this. If it's another one, then do that. But on principle, this one had exactly what I wanted to actually do. The next part of the story was I came across Joe Glines, who was displaying information of data, and he's suddenly saying, if you've got a bit of data, here's a quick way of just quickly grabbing that data and displaying it. So he did something with first names, last names, and stuff, and it just brings it up in a little table. It's good video, very short, only 2.5 minutes. So, but he also had one where it actually pull it up from a file, and I thought that's exactly what I want, and that's what this does. It just pulls up a file, it reads a file, and displays that information, and then it allows you to sort by the columns. So it's only sorting plus and minus, but so far I've got the number of the columns, I've got the extension type, so it can sort by that alphabetically. It can sort by date, obviously numerically, and it can sort by project depending on alphabetically and things like that. So you can, maybe with the project you can be a bit sneaky with things. You can sort by any of these ones here. So I thought that's brilliant. Now inside Excel I can filter, so I can click on one of these and I can say only show me PDF. So it doesn't do that at this point in time, but it more than happily does. So if I actually just go and find an image, there's a JPEG, we just click on that. Now you can click on any part of the row and it just opens up the specific program that you need and displays that file. But I don't need to know where the file is. I've got the file path through there or whatever, and I can do that. Now, I was very excited with that, and he actually shared all of that code through there, and that was very nice of him, so I used that and did it. The next thing I was doing, while I was exploring along, I came across an article about pullovers LV rows. And what that does is that when you're actually in the pop-up, it's got a little tab through here where you can copy, you can, I think you can cut, copy, delete rows. I can't remember if you can paste a row or something like that, but you can actually do some alterations inside the table itself. And I thought, wow, that is really, really good. Except when I started to play with it, when I started to try and set it up, because it's a class, I suddenly realized it's not what I wanted at this point in time, because of the fact of I'm taking a copy. So all I'm doing is I'm going and reading that file and I'm bringing it up into here. So now if I want to delete this number 68, so this one's solving Sudoku through here, or let's say this directory about screenshots through there, so number 64, if I delete that, I've got a little hotkey, Control Alt and D, that just says what number, and I'm going to say number 64 and go OK. Now if I just refresh that now, you'll see 64 doesn't live there anymore. So it's gone back to the original file, and what it's done is it's gone through and it's running another little script that goes through, takes the original file, reads every line until it comes across that number, and while every time it reads the line, it's copying it, it's doing a file extend into a new file. So it's doing the file extend into a new file, and as soon as it comes across that number, it just doesn't do a file extend, so it just ignores it and goes through. So you end up with the same file as you had before, less that one number, and then it overwrites the original file. So, and that's in some ways what I'd have to do. If I ended up with the pullovers method of doing it, I'd end up going into the rows, deleting stuff in here, and then I'd have to write this to a new file, and then I'd have to overwrite the original file. Now, maybe that's a better way of doing it, because then you can graphically come through and maybe do a bit of editing in here if you just wanted to rename something, etc. And that may be the method of actually doing it. At this point in time, because I'd end up with doing that delete button and getting that delete working, I found I wasn't going to go down that path at this point in time. So it meets that. But one of the things when I was actually reading about the article about his particular Rose one is that I came across this other gentleman called Auto Hotkey Just Me, and he's got one called Class Color, and so it was mentioned in there. And I suddenly thought, oh, I can do alternate banding, and maybe in this one the color's a bit bright and the text is a bit small, but I find this really easy to use because you can follow a line, a bit more information a lot more quickly than if it's not banded. So I ended up using that one through there to actually meet that. So at the end of the day, I'm very, very happy with what I've got, and I'll upload these codes so that other people can share them if they want to use them, and more maybe take them and develop them further for what they're actually doing. So a couple of things you can extend this further. At the moment, I've got about 6 hotkeys to actually create a new file, create a new folder, put it in there, go and edit the file, delete the file, refresh the file, and actually open this one up. So I've got to remember a lot of hotkeys. I could end up with a whole load of more buttons underneath here. And this one actually has something, coloring class for colors for GUIs that I suddenly thought might be a fun thing to actually do. And so it does. So I could add some buttons, although that's maybe worth doing a bit more. But I do find with GUIs that I spend an awful lot of time fiddling about getting the aesthetics right, and it sort of ends up leeching so much time out of you just doing a little bit of a tweaks and not the functionality. The other thing which I actually just want to bring up is the code itself. Now, inside codes, a lot of the times, which I've in a few other programs and things like that, you'll actually have a match. So if it's 1, do this. If it's 2, do this. If it's 3, do that. So it's not 1, it's not 2, just go to 3 and just go and do that. Inside, I'm trying to look for a match or a choice type thing, but the only one that I'd actually found was you've got to use the if, else if, else if, else if, or else at the end. So my else at the end is if it's a folder. If it's not a file type, then it's a folder, and open up Explorer wherever it is. So in all of the other instances, I've said if it's a PDF, go and open up Acrobat, and it's a link for that, and then open up that file. So if it's a text file, open up Notepad++. If it's now here's the thing, where I've got multiple variations that will still need to be opened by the same Acrobat. So if it's an XLSX or an XLSM or an XLS or a CV, I haven't got that yet, then use XL. and then if it isn't open up the program. And now this is the other thing that concerns me, is that I've got a full path going to where Excel is. Now this is something where the program that I've got is a great proof of concept, and it actually meets my needs at the moment. So I found it's handy, and I might end up enhancing it over time. But it's specific to my computer, since it's looking at all the paths of where the programs are for mine. And then I've got an a type JPEG or a GIF or a TIFF, or, you know, and I've got to test all of these out to see. And then there's other programs that I might have. I might have some for GIMP, or I might have one for other programs and things like a BIM program or a CAD program. So I've got to make sure the right programs are activated for that. So I've got to go and search all of those things and do that. But it's not generic, and that's one of the things. If I compile this program, at the moment it's in two parts of code. One part is in, I've got fired up so that I can quickly add things to a file path, or the second one's in testing mode that I need to link into the main file as well. But when I pulled all of those together and got one program or one bit of code that does all of that program, the next thing that I've got to do is, if I compile that, I've hard-coded all of these paths and to where the programs are. Now that's no good. It's got to be, you've got to make it loose enough. So I've almost got to do an ini type file, or another file that you run a script and you say, if it's extension type PDF, use this program, and then you give a location of where that program's exe or link is to actually start that program is. If it's this, go and do this. If it's this, go and do that. If it's this, go and do that. So you associate a program that it needs to activate with a certain file extension that you can do that. Now, if you did that in the second one, then you could actually compile this to actually be you can compile the main code, so it's just an exe file, and you can get them to create a separate file that would actually have all of those associations, and they could add or subtract depending on what they needed if things change. Because that's the other one, like an example of this one. This is looking at Office 16, and I don't know if there's a Office 20 or 2 or whatever as to which variation it is. That again, those paths might be completely different. So this is one of the things that does concern me, is it works for me, and I think it's a convenience thing. And where I said before when I did the first one is I hadn't found anybody else who'd done what I was looking to do. This gentleman had, to a point, of just having a list of things that he was activating, but then he hasn't got the description, which is what I actually wanted to allow as well. The other nice thing with this one here is that, you know, if you actually wanted some more information, or you wanted to get the oh no, it's done that. There's something I've got a little bit of a bug in there now. Or you wanted to go and find the actual path of the file, you can there. But also anywhere along that line that you click on will work. So you don't actually have to be in a specific cell to make it happen. So from the point of view of a JPEG, as long as you're anywhere on that line, it'll work. It'll open it up. Bang, off it comes. So that's, I think what he'd done on his one is that he hid all the other columns. So there's only one column showing. Because I actually wanted to be able to sort, to be able to give people a bit of flexibility. The other thing with this as well is that it also has the scroll bars, which are quite handy, because part of the code which Joe Glines actually had on this, which I thought was quite interesting, if the number of rows that you've got is more than 27, then only show 26, and then you can scroll the rest. So again, you can actually sort that, you know, if you're looking at a very old file or you're looking at a very new file. But if you've got something like 3,000 and you want one in the middle, then you're in trouble either way, unless you've actually done it by project, in which case you can actually use the project to fair. But that's maybe where something visiting can be done. So, and I've just said, because his was based on the number of columns could vary. It could be less than 8, could be less than 80, could be otherwise. size, make it full screen or something like that. I've just done it a fixed amount just so that it's a certain wide column. The same with the colors. One of the things with the colors is that I've been playing around with a purple or an orange or a navy blue or this and that and the other. So I've got them so that at variables at the top so that I can alter a different color and it automatically changes down the bottom, that I don't have to go into each part of the code to actually go and it's color A, color B down here. But I can do it at the top of the file, so it's easy just to go and look and get those ones in there. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If, as I said, I'll put a link to the thing through there. If you find that you want to use the code and you want to elaborate it further or take it to places where it might be more suitable for you, you're more than welcome to do so. I'll put it in as it gets better. If I improve it further, I'll most probably end up putting it up on GitHub, like my time capture one, if I make it more generic. But at this point in time, because it's just work in progress, but I'm wrapped that it's all totally free. I'm wrapped that it's fast, quick to actually pull up and do it. Now I've yet to test this with something like 1,000 lines, but then again, I don't think, you know, like for the number of files that I'll be working on, I want to be able to delete them quickly, you know, like they're only relevant, like if I only want, you know, a few months worth of files and only certain ones to do with certain projects that I pick up and put down. So there, I don't need them for everything. Oh, well, that was my intention of what I actually needed them for, but it may end up needing a bit more. Now, what I actually also did as well is I said, well, however many lines you've got, add another line so that there's a blank line at the bottom, is that you're not just sort of reading something at the very bottom and actually having difficulty reading that line because everything else is too close to it. So thumbs up or not, thank you very much. You have a good day, as the Kiwis say.